Hi everyone, welcome to the ReceipterPro Advanced Training video. My name is Sean. I'm going to take you through some of the advanced features of the ReceipterPro application. We're going to take a look at the template editor. I'll show you how to make changes to templates, how to add merged fields, etc. We'll also take a look at the business rules module. So we'll take a look at how the business rules are created and how we can create new ones and modify them. We'll talk a little bit about how PDF files are created and how to access those PDF files. And lastly, we'll talk about the email settings and how you can customize the email messages that ReceipterPro sends. If you haven't already, I would recommend that you watch the beginners ReceipterPro training video that we have that kind of covers the basics of how to import GIFs into ReceipterPro, how to make changes, and how to process GIFs with ReceipterPro. So with that, let's get started. As we discussed in the beginner's video, you'll see that you have your GIF list on the left, and then you have a preview of the GIFs on the left, on the right. We also talked about how some GIFs can utilize different templates, and again, that's based on business rules. So we'll talk a little bit about how to set those up in ReceipterPro, and we'll also talk about the templates themselves. So this GIF that I've selected here is using the template that's called the full page receipt template. So we're going to go into the editor and we're going to edit this template maybe and add a couple new fields to it. To access this template in the editor, I'm simply going to click on the templates list at the very top. That's going to bring us to a list of our templates. I will locate the template that we're interested in, and this time it's the full page receipt template. At the bottom of the template list, I'm going to click this little edit button right here, and that's going to bring the template directly into the editor. Okay. Now let's say, for example, maybe we want to add the gift reference line to our template somewhere. Maybe we want to add it into this little description box right here. So let's insert a merged field. If you want to insert a merged field, you simply come up to the very top of the window and go to the Insert tab, and then come all the way across and select Merged Field. This will bring up the Merged Field selection screen, and this screen allows you to insert fields from Razor's Edge, but you can also insert signatures and other template blocks as well. And we'll talk more about the signatures and template blocks in a moment. We're going to insert a field from the gift record, and the field that we're interested in is the reference line. So from the Fields tab, I'm going to select Gift as the field type. This simply filters this list to show me the gift fields. And I'm just going to scroll down until I find the reference field, and there it is. And I'm going to click OK. And then ReceipterPro adds the merged field text here for the reference line. So if we were to generate this template, we would now have the reference field text listed here. Let's go back up to the Insert Merged Field screen so we can talk about some of the other options that you have here. So I'm going to filter the type by gift. Again, this is just what we did before. If we scroll down, we'll see the reference line again. But you'll notice if we scroll past the gift fields, we now have gift attributes. So if you wanted to insert a gift attribute value onto your template, that's very easy to do. Let's say, for example, maybe we wanted to output the sold on gift attribute. Maybe this is a stock gift. We simply select it, and now we've got the gift attribute value. So if the attribute has a value, ReceipterPro will place the value here. If the value is blank or the attribute does not exist, ReceipterPro will not put anything at all on the template. Let's go back up to the merged field button here, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the other different types of fields. So we also have constituent fields that are available. If you wanted to insert something from the constituent field list, you could do so. Again, just like GIFs, if you scroll down past the constituent fields, you will also see constituent attributes if you wanted to add those. Next to constituent, on the field type here, we have some specialty fields. Specialty fields are things that don't necessarily exist in Razor's Edge or things that are more difficult to get to, so we've created specialty fields for them. A perfect example of a specialty field is just today's date. So if you wanted to insert the date in your template, you could simply select the today's medium date specialty field. If you wanted the short date, a short date is just just the numbers with slashes between them. But if you wanted the date written out, you could use today's medium date. There's also some additional fields in here. For example, if you wanted to address the business relationship contact, you could select those from specialty fields as well. ReceipterPro also has special fields for soft credit. So if you're generating soft credit letters with ReceipterPro, you can insert both fields from both the hard credit and the soft credit into your templates, and you would access those from the soft credit field type here. Same goes for matching gift. If you're having ReceipterPro generate matching gift acknowledgement letters, we have some fields here that will help you access the necessary fields for the matching gift information. In addition to adding fields to your templates, you can also add signatures to your templates. So in my current configuration here, you can see that I've got 4 different signatures or 4 different signers. But if I wanted to say insert John's signature into my template, I would simply select John's signature and click OK. And then ReceipterPro will insert this merged field, which means this is John's signature. So when this template is created or rendered, rather, we would see John's signature right here. We've also got some logic scripts. So you can think of logic scripts like conditional fields. So for example, if the gift amount is over $1,000, maybe you want to add a certain piece of text to the template. Or if the gift has benefits, maybe you want to add a different type of legal verbiage to the bottom of your receipt. We'll talk a little bit about how to create logic scripts in a moment, but if you wanted to insert a logic script into your template, you could simply select the logic script and click OK, and then ReceipterPro would insert the merged field for that logic script here. Okay, so it's pretty easy to get information from Razor's Edge onto your templates, but what about if you wanted to add a picture, or maybe you wanted to add a hyperlink? We've made those things pretty easy also. If you wanted to add a hyperlink to your document, you could simply use this hyperlink text, hyperlink button right here. And for the text display, let's say, maybe we want to take them to our website. So I can just type in our web address here. Okay. And then what's the web address we want them to go to when they click? Okay. I'll click OK here, and then now you'll see we have a hyperlink in our template. Hyperlinks obviously aren't very helpful for printed receipts, but if you're doing a lot of e-receipting, they are very helpful because these links will appear in the PDF attachments, and they will be clickable for your donors. Okay. If you want to insert a picture, you can simply, we're staying on the Insert tab at the top here, you would simply just click the Picture tab, and then you could browse out and select the image that you wanted. And I believe maybe I have a image here that we could use. Right, so if you wanted to insert an image into your document, and of course, just as you would expect, you can click on that document and you can resize it as much as you would like, and the template will automatically reformat itself to fit the image. Let's go to the page layout tab quickly, because if you have templates that are a non-standard paper size, you can just use the size dropdown to set the size of paper that you want ReceipterPro to use for this template. You can also change the orientation. So if it's a landscaped template, you can simply choose landscape from that option as well. Okay. On the Home tab at the top, this is where you would change your fonts or set your centering or left justifying, that sort of thing. So for example, if we didn't want this particular piece of text right here to be centered, we could simply just click the left justification button to move it over. Also, we could send it to the right. If we didn't want it bolded, we could turn the bold off. We could even change the font type if we wanted to. The font list that you see here is whatever is installed on your computer. So if you have special fonts for your organization and they are already set up on your computer, ReceipterPro will automatically recognize those. Okay. The template editor works a lot like most word processors. So if you're familiar with something like Microsoft Word, you shouldn't have much of you shouldn't have a difficult time working with the template editor. But again, if you run into any problems, just simply send us an email at support@donortech.com, and we'll be happy to help you with your templates. Okay. If you close your template after you've made changes, ReceipterPro will ask you if you want to save your changes. In this case, I'm going to say no, but more often you'll probably want to say yes. If we go down to the next section, just below templates, we'll find a section called template blocks. A template block is just a smaller segment of a template that you can reference on multiple templates. So if you have a portion of your template that's the same, maybe the header is always the same or the footer is always the same, you could create a template block and then just simply add that block to each of your templates. Okay. The next section here is called business rules. So this is where you will create and edit your business rules. In the introduction video, we talked about the full page receipt business rule. So again, just as a reminder, this business rule was responsible for setting the full page receipt template. So if I just move this window over a little bit, we can see here that with this particular gift, it is using the full page receipt template, and I can see that right here. I'm going to close settings just for a moment. Now remember that there was a business rule that was responsible for this, and if we click the View Info button, we can see exactly what business rule it was, and in this case it was the full page receipt business rule. So business rule full page receipt has been applied. If we go to our business rule list, and I'm going to click the business rules shortcut right here to get back there. If we go to our business rule list, we'll see that we have a business rule in this list called full page receipt. And I'm going to click the little edit button so that we can see this in more detail. So the first page, the wizard just allows you to define the name for your business rule, and you can also define a description. The description is optional, but I always recommend that you provide a description. Underneath that, you can specify the document type that this business rule applies to. So if you're generating both receipts and acknowledgement letters from ReceipterPro, you can define different business rules for those different document types. So what we're saying here is that this business rule will apply to receipts. Okay, I'm going to click next. On this screen, we set the action type. So what should ReceipterPro do if this rule applies? And in this case, we're telling ReceipterPro to set the template. And then from the drop-down of templates, we're selecting the full page receipt template. So if it applies, use the full page receipt template. We're going to click next. Okay, now we can see what the conditions are. So what are the conditions that must exist in Razor's Edge in order for this business rule to apply? In this case, we can see we have two conditions. One of them is the fund description, and the other is the amount value. Now at the top here, we have an option to tell ReceipterPro that all of these conditions must exist, or at least one of them must exist. And in this instance, we're saying if at least one of these exists. So if the fund is Maple View or the amount is over $1,000, this business rule will apply. But let's add another condition to this business rule so that you can see how the conditions are created. To add a new condition, I'm going to click this little green plus button right here. That's going to bring up the criteria screen. So for each condition, there's three forms. The step one is the value in Razor's Edge that we're going to check. Step two is how we're going to check that. So what's the operator? Is the value in Razor's Edge equal to, is it greater than, is it less than, etc. And then step three is the value we're going to compare it against. So in this instance, for step one, this is the Razor's Edge field. We're going to select the field that we want to use here. So when I click that little browse button, let me go back. If I click this little browse button right here at the end of step one, this opens up the same field selector that you saw in the template editor. So you have access to the same fields in the template editor and the business rules module. So in this case, we're going to say, let's look at a constituent attribute. And let's say we're going to look at the constituent attribute called interests. So this presumably would include a list of interests for the donor. So let's say I'm going to click OK. So now we've got the field selected in the constituent attribute, interest selected in step one. Step two, I'm going to say contains, or maybe is one of. So if their interest is one of, let's say, sailing, and I'll click OK. And now we have a condition that if their interest contains sailing, then they would also get this template. So you can, again, you can base your conditions off of all of the fields that are available to Razor's Edge, gift or attribute, gift fields or gift attributes, or constituent fields and attributes. You can also base them off of scripts if you want. So we're gonna talk about scripts in more detail in a moment. But if you have some sort of complex criteria that you've created a script for, you can also base your business rules off of that as well. Okay. The next section I want to talk about are logic fields. So this is where your scripts live. And you'll notice that we do have some scripts here that are already created for us. We're going to create a new script from scratch. We're going to create a script that says if the gift reference is not blank, then we're going to do something special with that reference text. Many times the reference text that exists on the gift record isn't exactly what you want to show. So maybe, for example, maybe it's just the name of someone, and maybe you want to put some text in front of that name. Let's click the plus button here, and that's going to allow us to create a new script. And here for the name, I'm just going to say maybe reference text. Okay. And then for the description, we'll just say adds text in front of description, or in front of reference text. Okay. When I click in the script box, you'll notice the script box is empty, and that's because we have to write our script. We do have a built-in builder that will kind of help you build out your scripts a little bit. And if you click this little formula condition button, that is going to bring up the first criteria selector. This works just like the criteria selector for the business rules. So we have to define the criteria in Razor's Edge that we're looking for. So in this case, what we're going to say is, again, we're going to work off of the gift reference. So I will select gift reference. For the operator, I'm going to say is not blank, because if the gift record is blank, or if the reference line is blank, we don't want to do anything anyway. So we'll say reference is not blank. I'm going to click OK. And you'll notice that ReceipterPro has created the if statement for us. Okay. So what we're saying here is, here's the gift reference field, and we've got our operator here, which means not equal to. And then you'll see we've got two single quotes. That just means it's empty. So now what do we want to do if the gift reference field is not blank? We want to output some text. Anytime you want to output text directly to a template from a script, you have to put the text in single quotes. So we'll do a single quote first, and then we'll say, here is the reference text. Now, we also want to include the actual reference text at this point. So we need to insert the merged field into our output. So we'll click this little green button. This allows us to select a field to include in our output. And again, we're just going to use reference, but it could be a different field at this point also. We'll say reference, okay? And then at the end of our string, we're just going to put another single quote. So if the gift reference is not blank, we're going to write out, here is the reference text, colon, and then the actual reference text. We can click OK. ReceipterPro will add that to the list. Now we could simply reference that script in our template. So let's do that now. Let's go back to our template list. We're going to locate our full page template. Again, we're going to click the little edit button here. That's going to bring up the editor, and maybe we want to insert our script value right here. So I'll put the cursor where I want the script, come up to the top, back to your Insert tab, all the way over to Merged Field. This time we're on Fields, but we don't want a field, we want to insert a script. So we'll select Script tab here, and then here's our reference text script that we just created. And then you can click OK, and now we have the merged field for that script. So now when ReceipterPro builds this template, it's going to run that script and output the value of the script right here. Okay. If you run into difficulty when you're creating your scripts, just send us an email. We'll be more than happy to help you create your scripts and help you figure out if your script isn't working, how to get it working for you. Okay. You can easily edit your script. So if we come back to your logic field section here, just select the script that you want, and you can click the little pencil button at the bottom, and that will just bring up the editor where you can make your change. Let's skip down to the signatures section right here. If we click this, we'll see that we have some signers for our organization. So we manage our signatures outside of our templates. And the reason that we do that is because sometimes people's signatures change. Either their title in the organization might change, they might have a name change, their actual digital signature may change, whatever. So the reason we manage these signatures outside of templates is so that we only have to change it one time in the event that it changes. So let's say, for example, maybe James's signature changes. We need to make a change to it. So we just come to the signatures module and we select James' signature. We have a little pencil edit button here. If we click that, it simply opens up James's signature in the editor, and we can make our change. So maybe he was the Dean of Students, maybe now he's the Director of Advancement. Okay. If we wanted to reference James' signature in our template, we could of course just go to our template, click the little edit button, and then put the position of the cursor wherever we want, come up to Insert, Merged Field. This time we'll go to the Signatures tab, and we can insert John's new signature or James's new signature. So the reason that we do this is so that you don't have to go back and update all of your templates every time someone's signature changes. If you utilize the Signatures module, then you simply change the signature one time here, and then any template that's using the signature will automatically be updated. The signatures module is completely optional. If you wanted to embed the signatures directly within your templates using the template editor, you could do so. We just recommend that you do it this way because it's easier when they change. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about soft credits. ReceipterPro can automatically detect and generate soft credit letters. This is extremely helpful if you're working with donor-advised funds, or if you have a giving opportunity or you're importing gifts automatically that will automatically generate soft credits on your gift records. So with the soft credit settings, we can tell ReceipterPro exactly how it should handle those soft credit letters. At the very top here, you will tell ReceipterPro when you want it to generate your soft credit letters. In other words, do you want to generate soft credit letters when you are receiving gifts or when you are acknowledging gifts? Again, the only difference between receiving and acknowledging in Razor's Edge is, does the gift record get updated as receipted or as acknowledged? Some organizations will do both, but it just depends on how your organization is structured and what type of documents that you generate. So if you wanted ReceipterPro to automatically generate soft credit letters when you are acknowledging, you would just simply turn this one on, the first option on. Otherwise, you would probably use the second option. This third option here tells ReceipterPro to ignore the status of the hard credit letter. This is perfect for donor-advised funds. So when you bring a gift in from a donor-advised fund, you might not want to actually send the letter to the organization, but you still want ReceipterPro to generate the soft credit letter. So this is a perfect instance of when you would want to turn this option on. You also have relationship settings when dealing with soft credit letters. So if you want ReceipterPro to identify relationships and use corresponding addressee and salutations from those relationships, you can set up your settings to do that here. This is especially helpful for soft credits that exist on organizations. You also have full control over how ReceipterPro handles the soft credit addressee and salutation types. If you have specific types that you want ReceipterPro to use when generating soft credit letters, you can specify your first and your second choices here for both. If your first choice and second choice don't exist, then ReceipterPro will just choose the primary by default. The following section talks about how ReceipterPro handles soft creditors who are spouses. So there are two instances here. You could have a gift that was made by person A, and person B and person C are both listed as a soft credit. And in this example, B and C are spouses of one another. In many instances, you probably don't want ReceipterPro generating a separate soft credit letter to each of those people because they're spouses. So what you can do is you can tell ReceipterPro to generate a soft credit letter when two people are both listed as a soft credit. When you do so, you can also tell ReceipterPro to use specific addressee and salutation types. So, for example, if you have a joint addressee and joint salutation type, you could tell ReceipterPro to use those specifically when it's creating these combined soft credit letters. Again, this is used when two people who are spouses of each other are both listed as a soft credit on a gift. You may have another instance where you have a gift from a donor and that donor's spouse is soft credited. In those instances, you probably don't want to generate a soft credit letter at all, and that's what this first option will do. So this first option just tells ReceipterPro to ignore the soft credit when the soft credit is the spouse of the donor. Now, these settings all work based on the head of household flag in Razor's Edge. So one of these two donors needs to be marked as head of household for ReceipterPro to be able to identify which one to use. Okay. If you want ReceipterPro to generate matching gift acknowledgement letters, you can also tell ReceipterPro when you want those to be generated. Now, currently in ReceipterPro, you would activate that feature by going to either the acknowledgements section on the left or the gift receipts section on the left. In this case, we're going to gift receipts, but the process works exactly the same if you are generating acknowledgement letters instead. With the gift receipts section selected here on the left, we're going to go up to the top and go to our Razor's Edge tab. The first option on the Razor's Edge tab allows us to enable matching gift support. So what this means, if you turn this on, ReceipterPro is just going to check for matching gifts when you import your gifts. If you import a matching gift, ReceipterPro will generate a matching gift acknowledgement letter. And again, those are template types. So when you're creating your template types, you'll be able to tell ReceipterPro what type of template you're creating. We should also cover some of these basic settings here for just general acknowledging and receiving. And again, these settings are the same regardless of which mode you're in, or which section you're in rather. You'll just need to decide if you're acknowledging gifts, then you're going to work on the acknowledgements section over here on the left. So here we can see that you've got the addressee and the salutation types for your acknowledgement letters. You can tell ReceipterPro just use the primary one, but if you have specific ones that you would like ReceipterPro to check for and use first, you can specify those values here. Again, just like with soft credits, if your first and second choice don't exist, ReceipterPro would automatically use the primary option anyway. At the very bottom here, where it says record updates, if you want ReceipterPro to automatically mark your gift records as acknowledged or receipted, you would need to turn this option on here. By default, this option is turned off. So if you're processing and ReceipterPro is not marking those gifts receipted or acknowledged, it's probably because you have this option turned off right here. If we come up to the corporate contacts tab, this is right next to Razor's Edge. This is where you can specify how ReceipterPro should handle work records with relationship contacts. This allows you to tell ReceipterPro if the relationship type exists that you're looking for, to use it, and how do you want ReceipterPro to handle the addressee and salutation types in that instance. More often than not, we just say use primary. Use primary just means that it will follow the normal settings that you've specified in the Razor's Edge tab. So whatever settings it's applying to the donor, it would also apply to the corporate contact, unless on the corporate contacts tab, you tell ReceipterPro that you wanted to use a custom addressee or custom salutation. Below that is where we set the actual relationship contact type that ReceipterPro should check for. So If you tell ReceipterPro to check for a specific contact type only, and then from the drop-down, you can just select the contact type that you want to use. So this contact type list will be specific to your organization. So when you click this drop-down, you will see a different list than what we're seeing here now, because this pulls directly from your Razor's Edge. But you would need to specify the contact type that you want ReceipterPro to check for. And again, this is the relationship contact type. You can also tell ReceipterPro to check for this one first, but if that one doesn't exist, you could say use the first individual relationship that you find on the relationship record. More often than not, organizations will have this option turned off. So ReceipterPro will check for this contact type. If it finds it, it will use it for the addressee and the salutation. If it doesn't find it, it will just simply use the organization name as the addressee and salutation. Next, let's hop over to the Email Settings tab. This is where you will define the settings for how your email is presented to the donor. So we'll start here with the name of the person that the email is coming from. And then next to that will be the email address of that person. The next option here is the reply to name. So when they click reply to, what is the name that appears in that box? And then, of course, we also have the reply to email address. In some instances, the sent from and reply to are exactly the same, and that's perfectly fine. The next section here, you can specify the email subject. So you could say something like, thank you for your recent gift, or thank you for your generous gift, that sort of thing. This next option here allows you to attach a PDF copy of the receipt or the acknowledgement letter to the email itself. So we recommend that you turn this option on. And again, this just means that the email will have a PDF attachment to it. And again, this just means that the email will contain a PDF attachment of the actual receipt or acknowledgement letter. In the next section here, we define what will be the email body. So in other words, what's the text inside of the actual email message? We recommend that you use this second option here for use a custom text. And then in this box here, you will type in the message that will appear, or the text that will appear in the body of the email. This is usually just a generic message that says, thank you for your gift. Please refer to your PDF attachment for your actual tax receipt. That sort of thing. It's important to note that currently in ReceipterPro, you cannot include merged fields in this body text. So as of right now, it has to be pretty generic. In a future update of ReceipterPro, you will be able to include merged fields in the body text. We recommend that you use this body text option with the PDF option checked on. The reason for that is this is the easiest way for a donor to print a receipt or an acknowledgement letter is if it's a PDF. So I would recommend that you always include a PDF copy of the document with the email. Okay. Below that, you can specify specific email types that you want ReceipterPro to use, and you can specify their order. So for example, we could say our first choice is the email type that's called preferred. Our second type is called work email. So ReceipterPro will check for these in that order, and if it finds it, it will use it. You can also place this check mark here that says if neither of these exist, just use the first email address that's found. If you want to restrict ReceipterPro to using only email addresses which are marked primary, you can check this box right here. ReceipterPro will automatically ignore any email address that has the do not contact or invalid flags. So you don't have to worry about excluding those. Okay. Below that, you can also specify additional recipients for your emails. So if you wanted ReceipterPro to carbon copy the spouse of a donor on an acknowledgement letter, you could specify those settings here. You can also specify whether or not you want to include the spouse on the to field of the email or the CC field of the email. Okay. Lastly, you can specify opt-out options for your emails. So ReceipterPro can include an opt-out link at the bottom of every email message that it sends. When they click that email link, they will simply be taken to a form that asks for their name and their email address. If they submit that form, it gets sent to someone at your organization so that you can follow the opt-out process for that donor. That's the process if you use the standard opt-out link. So when they click that link, it just gets taken to a form on our server. If you want full control over the opt-out process, I would suggest that you create a opt-out form or web page on your website, and then you can include a URL in this box for what that opt-out link should be. So in other words, when they click the link, what's the URL that they should be taken to? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about printer settings in ReceipterPro. When you are setting up your printer in ReceipterPro, you'll select the printer that you want it to use from this list. So for example, I'll select this printer, and then I'm going to click the Show Properties button. This will bring up the printer properties dialog. Now this is going to be different for every printer, so what you see here is probably not going to match what you will see on your computer. But I recommend that once you select the printer, you always come to the Show Properties page and just double check that you don't have two-sided printing turned on. Some printers will default to this, some will not, so I always suggest that you check that and then just click OK. If you want ReceipterPro to automatically start printing the receipts or acknowledgement letters when you're processing, you can turn automatic printing on. This just means that when you're processing, ReceipterPro will automatically print the documents that need to be printed. If you turn automatic printing off, then you will simply be presented with a PDF file containing everything that would have been printed, and you can print it yourself, or you could save it and print it later. Lastly, on the General tab, we're going to talk a little bit about this option here for storing a PDF copy of each document. If you turn this option on, that means that ReceipterPro will generate a PDF copy of every single document that it creates. So everything that it printed and everything that it emailed, it will create a PDF for. We kind of consider these like archived copies. That way you always have a record of what was sent to the donor, regardless of how it was sent to the donor. If you want ReceipterPro to generate these PDF copies, you'll simply turn this feature on, and then you'll need to specify a path that you want ReceipterPro to place those PDF files in. Well, that concludes this advanced training of ReceipterPro. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at support@donortech.com.